this one hits close to the heart for, I would say, pretty much everyone here. Of all the drivers, I think most of us have rooted for Charlie at one point or another. I remember the time that he entered the sport, considered from the get-go the future champion of F1. Not only an absolute talent of a lad, but also the best-looking chap on the grid, hands down. You can try to argue, but just look at those eyes, mate. Absolute snack.
Oh my god. I've never looked so good.
And when he came in, an Italian-speaking Monegasque, he immediately joined Sauber. At that point, a struggling bottom feeder of a team. Not much has changed, though. And quite coincidentally, Kimi at that point was on his way out of the sport. Not like he ever cared about racing, but let's just say it started seeming like he gave less of a about it than usual.
I'm trying as hard as I possibly.
It's more like a hobby for me, so obviously I don't need to do it if I don't want.
And so it opened the door for a perfect transition of probably the most prospective and hyped up rookie there ever was. And as the clouds parted, a light shined upon the Prince of Monaco. Mattia's bright pale face descended upon the land, with his hair as curly as the fancy fusilli pasta you sometimes get when you thought you have some cash laying around. But in reality, you've just forgotten that you got your Sky bill on Tuesdays, so you'll actually be returning those tomorrow. And as he landed beside the child prodigy, he said, "Yes, child, you have been chosen. Chosen by your destiny." Not sure what that exactly meant, but certainly at least a mark in the Italian history books. And well, although the child wonder is now gone out and won both Monaco and Monza this year, so essentially completed the annual plan for the Ferrari F1 team for the next 5 years, the original expectation everyone had was that he would become a multi-world champion, reinventing Ferrari much like Schumi did back in the old ages. And well, it didn't go entirely to plan for poor Charlie, did it? In fact, I would say it has all gone to f***ing shit, hasn't it? The dream is barely intact at this point, and so is Charlie's mental health, it seems. And so today, I thought, we've waited long enough. I decided that I wanted to investigate what could have went so f***ing wrong that one of the most naturally talented kids became this. It's been really rough, man, not gonna lie. So, his ascension through the minor leagues was certainly impressive, but not otherworldly like Verstappen or more recently Antonelli, for example. But he still did really well. Initially racing in Formula 3, he did alright, finishing 4th overall, but ahead of some of the lads that we see on the F1 grid today. Ironically, Giovinazzi finished 2nd that year. And yet the dude flew out of F1 faster than Lewis was able to say Bono the tyres are shit. After F3, he jumped into GP3 and on his maiden year became the champion of the league. But since the league doesn't include Formula in its name, you can safely assume it's shit and not worth caring about. Nevertheless, that led him to joining F2 for 2017 and proving his worth also there, successfully securing the championship in the Prema team. But we all know he was destined for just one team, and one team alone. And that was Ferrari, but Sauber was actually his debut team, so it was a pretty miserable year. But it's kind of always like this, no? The new kids who seem to be absolute superstars in the minor leagues are just not trusted by the big teams yet and are asked to prove themselves once more, racing in the shittier teams before being given the golden ticket. The arse part about that is that sometimes the teams are so shit that the new boys aren't even able to really show any sort of progress. I will use a controversial example of Mickey, who started in Haas and was there for quite a long time, but was never really given a chance in a real car. Because whatever he was driving could barely be passed off as a skateboard. And that, I think, was also a very close call for Charlie as well. He was in the shittiest, least interesting or exciting teams for his rookie year, and if the Ferrari garage wasn't absolutely drooling over the idea of having an Italian-ish driver in their team, a similar fate could have awaited Charlie as well. But luckily, it all worked out, and he reached the seat that we all wanted to see him in. Lesson learned. Next time you're looking for a job, forget about the CV, forget about your work experiences, f*** that. All you gotta do is make sure to pick a f***ed up enough company that only cares about how you would look in their staff list online, which they would then use to flash when attracting new customers. Ironically, I've described the operating model of the Ferrari F1 team and the brothel. Maybe it's not so ironic. As Charlie joined the Ferrari team, the dream finally felt like reality. In fact, the 2019 season was a phenomenal start to the Monegasque's career, with halfway through the season, the chap being an actual contender for the championship. To remind you, at the time, this was the Mercedes era, where nobody even smelled the World Cup for 6 years in a row. And yet, here was Charlie, getting so close, he could almost lick it. But as the kid's life almost essentially peaked at the Italian Grand Prix, the Ferrari team was engulfed in a technical scandal and handed some undisclosed sentence behind closed doors. The performance thereof fell off for the rest of the year. And that continued on in 2020 and 21, with the guy finishing 8th and 7th. A Ferrari finishing 8th in the championship. And if that hurts as a Ferrari fan, you can't even imagine how Charlie felt at that time. Like, the guy is harder on himself than Ocon is on his teammates, and that's fucking saying something. Kinda wish some other drivers would have that level of introspection. Some of them might finally realise that they should have left their hopes and dreams before stepping foot in a go-kart. Then with Verstappen era in full swing, we all of a sudden got a glimpse at what the Monegasque had to offer. Halfway through 2022, Charlie was within an actual fighting chance with Max, getting 3 wins under his belt and within touching distance of the Dutchman. But from then on, the world had been engulfed in the dark ages. That was the Red Bull era. And for 1.5 seasons on, we were hearing nothing but Dutch anthems every fucking Sunday, with a few odd breaks for Bachata. Nevertheless, Charlie was able to outdo Checo and finish that year in 2nd place. And back then, believe it or not, that was actually considered a feat with the old Perez. Today, this is of course expected from the average Haas driver. And now, hopping into present year, motivated off of his home victory, finally by the way, only took 7 years, 1 cancelled race, 2 DNFs, 1 pole position he couldn't even try at, 1 pole position the team shit themselves through, and a rough grid penalty. But what a party that must have been, man. The head of the fucking country literally sprayed champagne during your victory celebration. So yeah, I take it back. Life definitely peaked in Monaco. But apart from that, it has been a steady championship climb for the first time in a while, where it seems that it is at least in the realm of possibility that he could win this one out. Probably would take Freddie to pull some string with the FIA and have a repeat of the 2019 modifications, but at least it seems theoretically possible, you know? But 7 years in, so far the seemingly inevitable championship win that we all predicted back in 2017 still seems just out of reach for the Wildy Coyote of F1. Alright, now having looked through his career, I think the main culprit has been actually a set of circumstances. It started with a bumpy and overpromising debut at Ferrari, with Charlie tasting the championship at a very young age and subsequently being extremely disappointed for a following 2019 and 20 seasons. And his mental state throughout that period had deteriorated at a staggering level, man. Every Grand Prix, it seemed more and more of his brain cells were consumed by self-doubt and depression that I was actually getting scared for the lad. So the strong initial performance from him, paired with the absolute abomination of a shitbox he was forced to drive right after, as well as the indisputable dominance that Red Bull have shown, have isolated Charlie and not given him any breathing space for a stab at the title, further and further deteriorating his self-confidence. Something that I think he certainly lacked for a good portion of the past few F1 seasons, and have not really seen even this season. Only now starting to show some glimpses of a relapse to the feisty Brad Pitt looking boy we knew so well in 2019. All of that was then only further exacerbated by the tumultuous leadership that the Ferrari team has had in the past 5 years, changing team principles like fucking rolls of toilet paper. I cannot really say for sure that the leadership was at fault for some of the underperformance that has caused the Monegasque to hate his life more than pineapples on pizza, but I can only assume that these guys were sacked for genuine reasons, other than a random decision made by Don Bariglia while sitting in his villa in Sicily. Yes, my perception of a powerful Italian man is the Bariglia Pasta Company and a scene from a Godfather movie. Sue me. So, what do we have? An eternally depressed F1 protege who has been wallowing in his pit of self-hatred for the past 4 years, an absolutely mismanaged top team that has had its performance more volatile than the Red Bull roster in 2019, and then a very unrealistic competition for the past 3 years by Sid from Ice Age. All of that has resulted in Charlie still being without the championship title, and looking like he's been through Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Syrian wars in one deployment. Seriously, he looks like he aged 40 years in the past 3. I almost want to feel bad for him. But Then I remember he's still probably the coolest guy in all of Italy, Monaco, and up there in the rest of the world, getting paid like 30 million a year, paying no taxes, and dating a girl so beautiful she looks like a fucking alien. So, meh, it is what it is.